Welcome to GenXAdulting. This is episode 5.
Yep.
And today we are talking about stages of life, and not in some heavy psychological terms, but just how the first part of your life is mostly mapped out and scripted for us as young kids, right? And the second
Yeah.
half of our lives and even beyond are kind of more of an open book, an
Yeah.
unscripted experience. And
I mean, so in the beginning of your life, you go to elementary school, you go to middle school or junior high, high school, and then some people from there go on to get a job, and then some people go on to college, and then the next step, marriage, kids, raise those kids, and then you're at the second part of your life. This is the traditional way that life has been set up by our society for at least for Americans, I can say that.
yeah,
And so for us as Gen X, and probably a lot of Gen Xers can relate to this, we're both 50. Well, I'm 53. You'll be 53 soon. Um, I think that we're now to the point where raising our youngest is still here. We're raising him. Again, I don't know if we've touched on this yet, but we have an openness concept of our family where our
hmm
kids, the nest is always open. They can always return home. Our daughter lives with us since graduating from college last May while she's working and saving money. Our oldest son had moved in with us after graduating college, moved out, and then did move back in again. And then now he's out. So we have a kind of a swinging door philosophy.
hmm
Parenting never ends for us. But that said, as far as the true hands-on parenting, we're down to our youngest one who will be starting high school in the fall. And we have more time on our hands, I guess I could say, to kind of sit back. I think you and I both sat back and thought about, okay, how do we want this second half of our life to go? Because it's
this
not mapped out.
This almost feels like the third part, though, because you've got the first part you talked about, the formative years, elementary school, maybe into college. You get married. That's sort of the unscripted part in my mind.
Mm,
It's not like you grow up thinking, okay, I'll get married, have kids. You don't really know what the hell that means,
right.
what it entails. There's plenty of books on it, but none of it's, it all just happens and it becomes kind of a blur. Now, as we've gotten to the point we're at now, this is another uncharted territory, I guess, a different phase. I mean, I'd say there's at least three.
See, and it's funny because I view children and raising children as part of that first half outline.
hmm
Give Granted, there's no instruction booklet for raising children, and every child is different, and every way of parenting is different. But that idea of these are the steps you follow through life. Having in general, I know there's a lot of people out there that have chosen to be childless or choosing to be childless, and a lot of people that are choosing to not get married. So I'm using generalities here, and especially for Gen X.
Well, it's also
You know,
more your generality or your truth in a sense.
I'm talking, and my generation. I'm speaking for my generation, and I think millennials kind of followed this playbook. Gen Z, they seem to be kind of changing the playbook a little more open minded about some things. Um, but so we had steps we took. We go to school, we graduate. Some of us go to college, graduate, get married, have kids, raise our kids. And then for some people, empty nesters, for us, open nesters. And you have this kind of open, what's the word? This open playbook, or this blank page, I
Well, it's
guess you could,
very unscripted.
it's completely unscripted.
Yeah.
And so I think it's such an interesting time where you really can sit back and either say, okay, I'm just going to chill and relax. And I mean, for a lot of people, most people, you're still working. And for a lot of us, we're taking care of elderly parents.
hmm
But in general, there is a little bit of that more free time again, or time at least to kind of decide what you want to do, as opposed to just having this obligatory agenda that you have to follow.
Yeah. I don't, I'm looking forward to when you just chill. That's a very
Yeah.
nebulous concept, but I think where you're going is, you have the kids and you grind and you're all over the place. And we've got a half a foot in that with
Right.
a soon to be high school kid.
Yeah.
But you do have more time. So it's not like every weekend is consumed. Like it's not like, okay, Saturday, what are we doing? We're going to play baseball or we're going to play soccer or there's a dance recital or whatever. There is okay, whoa, our weekend's actually open. Okay, cool. What do we want to do?
Yeah.
More so, I think that's kind of where you're going, right?
Yeah, and also, yes, and even in the evenings, you're not giving young children baths anymore. You're not chasing them around. There's not that chaos. The
Yeah.
chaos of raising children is done
Yeah.
in general. I mean, we're going into high school again. That's a whole nother chaos, and college. But that physical, and maybe I'm speaking as the mother because I was a stay-at-home mom. So most of my time, I went to school, I went to college, I got married, I had kids. And most of my time was taking care of those children. So for me, as our last one is becoming way more independent, significantly more independent,
Yeah.
it's allowed me to kind of look around my life and say, okay, wow, what do I want to do with this next half of my life?
Hmm.
Now, I have written a book and I am a writer. I do work part time writing, but I still am able to kind of not reinvent myself, but almost say, okay, well, what do you want to do now that when you grow up?
Yeah.
What do you, that opportunity?
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead of being sad that my time of raising children is coming to an end, I'm excited because I get to kind of rediscover who I am and what own thoughts and my own hopes and dreams just from myself as opposed to as a mother or a wife.
Yeah.
I finally have some space to devote to me. So I
Yeah.
guess yeah, speaking as a woman and a mom, that's where I'm at.
It's kind of that, what do I want to be when I grow up? I'm
Yeah.
still wondering that. I still question,
Yeah.
what do I want to be when I grow up? And not really sure.
Yeah.
And what's interesting for the difference, probably in some ways for us, is you're the primary caregiver and always have been.
Mhm.
And, I'm obviously here and along for the ride, but I've had hobbies over the years
Yeah.
where you might, when it's time to maybe where you might have a hobby, it's like, okay, I need to refuel. And where I've had hobbies
So
and
interesting you brought that up because there's this phenomenon about asking women what their hobbies are.
mhm,
And we, for those of us who have children, and a lot of women work outside the home, so you're working all day and then you're raising children, there isn't really as much of a space to have hobbies.
mhm,
And it's kind of like, well, my hobbies are that I made, you make dinner, I got up, I went to work, I'm raising children. Like to your point when you just said my hobby is I got to take a bath alone
yeah.
or I got to sit alone quietly for an hour. That's my hobby. Or I was alone in the car today.
That you think, um, is that a common theme amongst your group of girlfriends where, because I'm a serial hobbyist,
You are.
right? I'm into photography, gardening, hydroponic gardening. Um, we've always had a fish tank forever. It's been my hobby. Um, several other, whatever. I'm a serial hobbyist.
You are. Yep.
Um, do you think your friends are in that same camp of they don't have hobbies? It's just, chilling with a glass of wine maybe as a hobby, or, and not in a bad way, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think at least when women are in the mud, when they're in it, as I say, when they are raising the kids and holding down the house and working and doing all the things, I don't think there's time and energy for a hobby. Now, some women can pull it off. I think for some women, getting involved with volunteering in school, which I did do that
Mhm,
quite a bit when they were younger, but some women volunteering a lot in school. Now, some women exercise
mhm.
like Pilates, tennis, pickleball, walking. That would be considered something that they do. Going to the gym and probably going to lunch or coffee with your
What
girlfriends.
you're describing is such a privileged lifestyle, concept
Yes.
frame of mind. The
Yes.
thought of I'm going to go work out, you know, a lot of people work 2, 3, 4 jobs, right? So the
Yes.
concept of a hobby is um, not even really out there.
I don't even think the concept of a hobby, you're right, by the way, but I don't even think the concept of a hobby, when you compare how men view hobbies and women, is the same. Because I think inherently women are holding down, whether they're working one job, no job, one job, two job, three jobs,
Mhm.
they're holding down the crux of family life, whether they're married or a single mom. They're holding it down. And you're doing that until your kids are pretty much out of the house. So, no matter what's going on and whatever demographic you are, there really isn't a time for hobbies. Like men will just be like, I'm going golfing on Saturday,
Yeah. Or fishing.
or I'm going fishing.
Yeah.
They have no problem just stating it.
Yeah.
Women aren't like, I'm going golfing on Saturday. Like women, it'd be like, wait, what? Who's gonna watch the kids? What are you talking about? How long are you going to be gone? When are you coming back? Da 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 da. What am I supposed to do? Men can just say it and leave. And I think that
It's a
freedom,
beautiful thing.
right.
Yeah, it's a nice thing.
So I think that freedom allows them to have quote unquote hobbies
Mhm.
because they just do it because someone else is holding down the foundation of the home and existence. Now, I'm not saying they don't work and they don't bring in money because that holds everything down too. But I'm talking about more being present. They just kind of have no issues with just saying they're going to go do something and they do it. And women, with the way our society is, women just don't do that. And we're so busy doing so many things. We get so tired that by the time you could go do something, most of the time you don't want to because you're tired.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. So I think for women, when you get to that second half of your life, there's time.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. 2 things come to mind. Um, I do agree that it is easier for a guy to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this," and whatever. And when I think of the people we know, they're probably in a very similar situation. Most of your girlfriends probably do need to um, stick around and take care of things. Um, but now that you've opened it up, I think there's a lot of people a lot of couples that get divorced at this stage in their lives too, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, all right, I've put up with your shit all these years,
Yes.
and I'm done. I'm done with your shit. I'm done taking care of the house. I'm out.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
No, there's a ton of there's a lot of women that are done, that are just
Oh,
like,
that's what I mean.
yeah,
They've
yeah,
had
yeah.
enough. Yeah,
They've had enough.
yeah,
They're like, I'm done cooking for you, cleaning for you, taking care of everything for you. I'm out.
yeah.
I'm going to have self care now and take care of myself. I'm done taking care of your shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's interesting about the Gen Z women in their 20s is a lot of them are really holding space for that time of their life to let it be okay to not be married, to not be chasing for that relationship, and to let it be their time, their self care time, their me time, where they take the chances, travel, go after the different jobs, get the massage, just do whatever they want, have hobbies. They have
Mm-hmm.
read the books, have the hobbies instead of having it be a placeholder until you get married, which is how my generation, Gen X, we pretty much in general, we were okay, we're doing this until we get married. Like we're living our lives until we get married. Like once you get married is when your real life
Yeah,
starts.
yeah. You settle down.
And then you're like, okay, now I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Where these Gen X women are like, no, this is a real part of my life. This isn't a placeholder until I get married. I am honoring this time of my life. I love it. I admire it, and I find it just inspiring. I really find them inspiring. So I think for women that are Gen X that
It
have,
sounds like a TikTok thing where a bunch of women your age are out there posting TikTok videos on this topic, would you say?
I haven't seen
Flexing their independence or their it's
so
I'm in charge now type of thing.
no, I haven't seen a lot of that on TikTok, but I have definitely seen some stuff like women have just they're done. and they want to have their own time. Like as I was about to
You
say,
telling me something here?
yeah, no, not yet.
Yeah, I sense it.
But for Gen X women, I feel like we are just now realizing, hey, we deserve our own time too. We're more than a wife, we're more than a mother, and we're more than whatever position we hold at whatever job we're working.
So do you think that perspective is unique to Gen X? But you think the boomers were like that, where they had that epiphany that, okay, the kids are out, it's time to, I'm in an open nest. They defined the concept of open nest, right? The boomers got out.
No, no, they were emptiness. They're like, get out, don't come back. Openness.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
mean. They defined the concept of empty nest,
Right.
and
And the
you're
silent
out,
generation. Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
That's now morphed into we're entering that phase
Yeah.
as a generation, Gen X.
Right.
Um, so it's almost that those two generations. I wonder if the next one will be more like that or not.
Millennials.
Yeah, it feels like what you're saying. Maybe, maybe not.
I don't know. I don't think, no, I don't think boomers, I
They're
think
still too
boomers,
young to be in that phase too. But
millennials for sure.
yeah,
I think boomers just kind of were like, yeah, our kids are get out. Now we're gonna go do what we want to do. We're done. Like they did that traditional retired life,
yeah,
typically together if they're still married. Um, I'm not saying there isn't boomer women out there that are living the life and going on girls' trips and stuff.
hmm
I've seen it. There
yeah. There
is
has to be.
for
Yeah.
sure, and they're loving it. They're loving not being with their being married anymore.
hmm
And I think Gen X is following suit in that a lot of women are like, you know what, I did my time, and I'm gonna honor myself now.
I did my
I took
time.
care of everybody, and but that
Do you think it's the women? So are the women driving this more so than the men, or I'm oblivious in some ways to the concept here.
I think maybe. Yeah,
Yeah,
it could be. It could be because even women, I'm married, right? I think it has to do
I think
with
so.
if the women are divorcing, that's obviously they stayed married for the children,
hmm
right?
hmm
You and I have the unique experience of we were good friends for 3 years before we got married.
hmm
That friendship is what has been the foundation of our marriage. We've been married 30 years this year. That friendship is what has gotten us through the good and the bad.
hmm
And obviously, we love each other very much, but it can't survive on just that love alone. There has to be that friendship.
hmm
So, and we've always done. We've gone to see live music together. We've done things together. We hike together.
hmm
So, I think you have to maintain some sort of friendship through your marriage, or else
hmm
once the kids are gone, you're going to look at each other and not even know who the hell you're going to be like, who are you?
hmm
And I'm tired of being with you. There's nothing there.
hmm
So I think these women drop the weight and we're like the extra baggage and we're like I'm done cooking for you taking care because I think there's definitely a significant amount of men that don't appreciate the women that are in their lives,
Oh, come on.
I do. So these women are like, you know what? I'm going to go do the things I always wanted to do. And I guess for me personally, I'm married, I'm happily married, and I still have my youngest here, but he'll be gone soon. But I have time to kind of look around and say, okay, I can actually, what do I want? Like, what
hmm
do I like? And when you've raised children for so long and held down a home and worked and done all those things, sometimes you forget what you like and what you like to do. It's hard. It's not that you vicariously live through your kids, but you give over so much to raising them that you kind of lose part of yourself. So it's almost like getting to know yourself again and what you like and what you want to do. And taking chances. I think it's so important to keep taking chances.
So with all this being said, what's your big move? Do you have one in
Well, I
mind?
think you're listening to it right
Yeah,
now.
true.
The
Podcasting.
this
Yeah.
podcast, is one thing. This podcast is a leap, and it's exciting and it's different. It's
hmm
something we can do together in this next half of our life.
hmm
And so I'm really enjoying it. I think you are as well.
hmm
Um, I've significantly changed my lifestyle in the last 2 years, my health lifestyle. I think that's something to do a podcast on, are the things that we've done over the last 2 years to significantly change our lifestyle because we plan on being around, God willing, for our grandchildren
hmm
and truly growing old together. So I've changed my lifestyle. Um, and then I want to start vlogging,
hmm
and getting into that. And I know it sounds kind of cliche because like everyone's doing this stuff, right? But for at least speaking for myself, I've never done these things before.
Mhm,
This is, as a Gen Xer, this is new technology to me. I'm not a technical person at all,
mhm.
the exact opposite of you. So even like learning technical things, like that's brand new to my
Yeah,
mind. So that's something
yeah. It's
for me.
interesting because I've always been technical. I'm actually I go to more the analog side of things,
Yeah.
meaning developing film as opposed to being in Photoshop messing around when I'm doing photography.
Right.
Developing black and white film is kind of fun.
Right.
Um, Hydroponic gardening, or even just gardening and landscaping, getting your hands dirty type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, because your job is technical. So to balance out,
Yeah,
your mind is also never not going.
yeah,
So you need a bunch of hobbies to satisfy.
yeah,
You're a highly curious person.
yeah,
So you need that. You personally need that. Those are
yeah,
your outlets.
yeah,
Whereas I'm the opposite. I want to just relax and do nothing because because for 30 years I've been going, 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 going.
yeah,
And then when I could get a chance to not do anything, I didn't want to do anything. And now I guess I feel like I actually have the energy to start to do some things.
yeah.
But yeah, for you, like okay, so you have all these hobbies. Not now that we're not involved as much with the kids. Now
Mhm.
lacrosse season's about to start, so that's going to change.
Yeah, our
But
world's about to
yeah,
get spun upside down.
but then it'll slow down again. What are some things that you're finding or planning on doing more of, or is there anything that you've made some more space for in this second part of our
I would
life?
say this. I'm enjoying this. This is fun.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully there's an entertainment or at least an intrigue value
Mm-hmm.
in it. I like the idea of the vlogging as well because it's interesting to kind of capture the things you've done. And I've never kept a journal, so I don't have a recorded history of my life. I have taken a ton of pictures, and so I look at pictures over time, and that tells my story. Um, excuse me. I think I'm kind of down for some getting into more live music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we actually just uh, bought tickets to see Billy Strings in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I would expect it to be, right?
Yeah.
So, um, that and I, as a serial hobbyist, right? I go in and out, right? I
Mm-hmm.
get into photography pretty big, and then I'll shift to my into gardening, and you know, so those two things.
And we own a 1976 Volkswagen bus,
Yep.
and I think that's on your list of
Yeah.
wanting to start working on that again. Because if you own a Volkswagen bus, you're never not working on it. But you've taken a significant break from that.
Yeah, I have. It's been a couple of years.
It's been quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that'd be fun to drive that around again.
Yeah, totally.
No, I think it's an important part of, okay, so speaking, we've been married for 30 years and we did all these things in the timeline it was supposed to be done, I guess. Now we're in the second part of our life and it's like, okay, so we get to kind of figure out how our relationship continues in the second part of our life. It's still centered around our children and hopefully someday grandchildren, but we get to kind of come full circle and do things like you're saying. We're going to go up to Pennsylvania to see Billy Strings, just the two of us.
Hmm.
That's unusual. Usually we have the kids with us when we do any traveling. So we're coming full circle to do things together again. And I
Hmm.
think that's important as you get to that phase where your kids are leaving, that you kind of get that relationship of just the two of you, maintain that again and do new and exciting things,
Hmm.
and I think as you get older, trying new things also forces your brain to continue to think and grow. And they say that that helps with Alzheimer's, dementia, and all of that.
Yeah, yeah,
To
definitely.
not get in a rut where you're
Yeah.
just, okay, now the kids are gone. We're going to just sit and watch TV and not do anything. I think it's important to stay active so that everything in your brain keeps going and stays strong. It's like exercising that too.
Well, it's funny you say that. When I was in college, I worked for a retired couple who moved from Southern California to Southern Oregon and help them build out their property, right? We were putting in, um, we built a barn, built pigeon coop, things like that. And I used to think, and the guy I worked for retired early. I think he retired either 50 or 55 years old. And I used to think he would get up every day at like 5:30 or so and start. And he was worth millions of dollars. And I used to think, why isn't he just chilling?
Yeah.
And as you get older, it's like, and you just don't chill. Your
No.
mind never stops, and it kept him going. It kept him young and in shape.
I think now more than ever at our age, it's so important to keep moving, keep going because it's what helps you continue
Yeah.
to go and to live and stay up with everything.
Even professionally speaking too, though, it's not a hobby, but there's a balancing act. But the technology today that I work within, right? It's this all this stuff with going on in the cloud with with Microsoft Azure and Amazon's AWS and Google's cloud and AI. It's all really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And so that too is very thought provoking. And I guess my hobby in some ways there is I own at least 10 different Raspberry Pis.
Yeah. Yes.
So I've had a lot of fun with those, but it's bringing what's going on in the world at a larger technological level and playing with it at home.
Yeah.
IoT, right? IoT is the Internet of Things, and things like uh, a remote controllable doorknob. I, you know, I, I think that stuff's cool.
Right.
The video cameras in the house, and not in the house, but outside the property,
Mhm.
being able to automate the sprinkler system or things like that. I think that's kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. No, so I think for you professionally, and thankfully with technology always changing, it has continued to challenge you.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because you can completely reinvent yourself at our age.
I would say you have to.
Yeah.
We did this once before, but professional advice,
Yeah.
continue to reinvent yourself, especially as you get older and there's kids coming up behind you that are quite frankly smarter. At least they're more in tune with things like AI and the cloud services and stuff like that. They grew up on phones.
Mhm.
You have to continue to reinvent yourself and learn stuff and find fun in the new stuff.
Yeah. I think it's imperative. The founder of Girl Scouts started Girl Scouts, I think, at the age of 52 or something.
I think Sam Walton didn't open Walmart till he was maybe in his 50s,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
It is. There's this idea that if you haven't, I feel like, especially for kids, there's this pressure on them you need to know what you want to do before you go to college. And then while you're in college, you need to focus on that major and graduate with that. And then you go into that
Mhm.
line of work and that's what you do. And I think it's so important that to understand that it's a fluid thing. You're always growing up.
Mhm.
We're in our 50s.
Well, the best is yet to come.
And the best is always yet to come. We're
Yeah.
in our 50s, and I still feel like we are still growing up. I know that younger people look at us, at like people our age, and think we have it figured out and we have the
Yeah.
answers. We do not.
Yeah.
We are literally figuring it out as we go along. Most people older than you are figuring it out as they're going along. And so it never changes. So never feel pressure to be like, okay, I'm going to be this and this is what I'm going to be for the rest of my life because everything ebbs and flows and you have to be open to that change, that growth, and other things may interest you and you should always go for it
Yeah.
as much as you can. Obviously, if you're the breadwinner, you need to work your job. If you're the one that brings in health insurance, you need to work your
Mhm.
job. If you're working 3 jobs, you have to keep working those.
Mhm.
But if you can, make some space for other hopes and dreams in there because it's not like you get to this finish line when your kids are raised and you get a medal
Yeah.
and you did it. Like life is still continuing.
Well, what's that? I think it's the John Lennon quote, "Life is
What
happening while you're busy making other plans."
life is what happens to you while you're
Yeah,
busy
there you
making
go.
other plans. And
Yeah.
it's so true. And so you get to that. And I think a lot of people, I'm talking about people who have children. A lot of people raise their kids and then are kind of like, well, now what do I do? Especially women. But this was my life. Now, what do I do now? And it's this emptiness. And
Mhm.
so I think it's understanding you do whatever you want to do. Like it's your time.
Yeah.
And challenge yourself and reinvent yourself. And I wonder sometimes this whole idea of mapping out our lives up until really age 50 or whatever is because life expectancy was so different even 100 years ago. I mean, we're living
Well,
now so much longer
no,
in
it's
general.
a wild concept, right? Because it's not far fetched for us to think we'll make it to say 85. It's
Hopefully.
another 30, 35 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that seems far more reasonable now than, I don't know if you even think about it, say 10 years ago. But
Yeah. I mean, no, well, 50 used to seem old, but now 50 feels like
yeah,
40.
totally.
I can't even tell the younger people how much 50 does not feel old. It just does not at
Oh,
all.
before you know it, you'll be 50.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you're like, wow, we're those people,
Yeah, totally.
But I think life expectancy has changed. And so there is truly a second act.
Yeah.
God willing, right? Not for everybody. I mean, my God, look what happened with your dad and my dad, right?
Mhm.
They died way earlier than they should have.
Mhm.
So life does happen, and for and in those situations, and that's why you should live every day to the fullest if you can. But in general, there is this whole other part of life that happens, and I just think it's fascinating to kind of wake up one day and look around and think, oh, okay, so I can really take a breath and look and think, what do I want to do? What do I want to do with this time? And I think it's important to give back too as
Well, I
much
was
as you
just about
can.
to say there, I was
Yeah.
waiting for you to pause, but, um, that's a big thing, right? You reach
Yeah.
a point where you have some wisdom you can impart on others just through experience, and so those opportunities are out there, mentorships.
Mhm.
Um, Really mentorships or volunteering, right? A lot of volunteering happens. You see a lot of older folks, um, in various charities
Yes.
organizing things that
Yes.
are good.
Yeah.
Um,
And
that is a huge
it
thing.
is when you give back. And I do find interestingly with friendships, the older I've gotten, the more the more quality friendships matter to me versus quantity.
Yeah, yeah, no
And the
doubt.
less time and patience I have for inauthenticity in a friendship is I have so much time set aside for these friendships. Especially my women friends, I cherish them. I cherish them. They are so important to me and vital. But my patience and time for what I will put up with every year I get older, it diminishes what I'll put up with.
Yeah,
It's really changed. That has changed a lot.
yeah, yeah, no doubt.
And that's the ruffles feathers too. That causes some drama. And it is, that takes some courage too, to be able to say, this doesn't serve me anymore, or this is toxic to me, and I don't have to put up with it anymore. I can end this. I can stop this person from having access to my life. It's okay.
I do think that's part of more the unscripted aspect of things, right? It's off script to not put up with bullshit to a
Yes.
point. Depends on what your early script was. I think our kids are probably scripted to put up, not have the same tolerance probably as we did. Um, but the world's changed in that sense. Um, yeah, like I say, I think that's part of that unscripted aspect.
Well, I think that when you get to a point in your life that you will not put up with certain things from people, people don't like that.
Yeah.
And it can offend some people. It can cause some people to talk behind your back, all that stupid high school stuff. But I think it's important to do it because you almost don't realize how toxic the situation was until you have removed yourself from it or you remove that person from your life. And to your point, we raised our kids to have that skill as much as they can. I wasn't raised like that. But as you're raising children, you also have a pretty wide group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they get older, you're able to kind of narrow it down to the quality friendships that you gain there. You don't have to be everybody's friend.
Yeah.
And some people are offended by that or find it rude, but it's healthy. At least I can speak for myself. It's healthier to it's okay to say no. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say this doesn't serve me in my life. It was there for a season. But now it's okay to let it go. Letting people go is so healthy and so okay.
I think I think it's Alex Hergozi. Um, guy, I haven't watched his podcast in a little while, but he's talked about that, how he's had friends over the years, and he's more about probably business, right? And he's one of those guys who's more about how to succeed, how to make money. Very interesting. Check him out. Um, maybe we'll put a link in or something on the bottom of like the podcast or on YouTube or something. But he talks about that. He's like, you only have so much time in your life, and he focuses on his quality relationships, and then we'll allocate, and that's sort of that mechanical sense of it, but make sure to spend an hour a month or an hour every 2 months or an hour a quarter, whatever it is, with those primary contacts, the people he gets the most out of. The rest, they're done. They're
Hmm.
gone.
Yeah.
And it's not a callous thing. It's just a matter of, look, there's only so much time in our lives that you want to derive value out of the relationships you have.
Yes, and I think that as the more time you put towards your quote unquote hobbies or the space you've set aside for yourself,
Hmm.
that in addition to the time you give to your family, to your work, there it's right. You're right.
Only 24 hours in
Yeah,
a day.
there's only so much time. And I feel like through the last 30 years raising kids, I've made lots of acquaintances, friends, been running around crazy because the kids do all these different things. But it gets to the point where you're like, okay, there has to be some balance here. And it's healthy to say, this is who I'm going to give my quality time to.
Yeah.
And just because I'm not maybe your friend anymore, maybe we're just acquaintances or we don't even talk anymore, doesn't mean I wish you ill will. It
Hmm.
just means we were in each other's lives for that time, but it's okay to move on. It's
Hmm.
okay to move on. It's okay to let people go, especially if those people are toxic or abusive. You
Hmm.
have to let them go. You have to let them go if you're going to grow at all. You have to make space for what is for you. And if you don't cut out what isn't for you, what is for you will never come. You have to create that space.
Yeah, but I don't even think it's as callous as how that could sound, right? Um, it just happens. There's only 24 hours in a day, and it's filled mostly with commitments that are non-negotiable. You need to sleep, so there goes, let's say, 6 to 8 hours
Hopefully.
if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Um, you might, if you're working, that's at least 8 to 10 hours. Um, so there goes most of your day.
Hmm.
If you have kids, there's some stuff going on there, whether it's homework or activities or whatever. So there's not you got to eat,
Yeah.
so before you know it, your day is pretty well consumed.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting is women will always make time to meet up with other women or talk with other women. We'll find time for that.
Hmm.
So, yes, all those
Yeah,
things you
but still,
said.
that time you spend with other women is a
Yes,
finite resource.
it
So you
is.
have to choose carefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking as a woman, so vital, especially at this point in my life. Like I said, I'm only spending time with women who are going to who are kind of in the
Kind of
same
fill your cup
fill my
in a
cup.
sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Because you also, I think, once you reach our age, you kind of face your mortality more
Hmm.
and time, h-
100%.
how much time you have left, which
Yeah.
is probably redundant, is really in your staring you in the face, and
Yeah.
so you don't really want to give up any more precious time to anyone undeserving of
Totally
it.
agree.
You know?
Hell yeah. Like, I've never thought of my mortality until maybe even just recently, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. It's
yeah,
weird. It's like something goes on, there's a light, and it's like, well, shit, I don't
yeah,
really have that much time.
yeah.
So I don't want to sleep, really, right? I don't want to sleep in till, past 8. And
Right,
that's like sleeping in.
right.
Um, I don't want to necessarily go to bed. And it's not this fear, right? It's just and it's not a FOMO. It's just a weird thing. It's like, okay, I'm in this second, third phase of my life. It's not as,
You want
what do
to,
I want to do? I want to maximize this.
yeah, you want to use every minute of it,
Yeah.
the of quality time. You want, yeah, so you know that there's only so much time left, so you want to honor it. You want to
Yeah.
honor all the time you have left.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that way before
Me
until,
neither.
like you said,
Yeah.
it was right after I turned 50. And that's when we made the big
Yeah.
lifestyle changes. You
But,
know,
but
at least I did. But when I turned
yeah.
50 is when I made the decision to, it was a big health decision for us. We made a lot of health decisions because
Yeah.
we realized you can't keep doing some of the things you're doing when you're in your 30s and 20s, 30s and 40s and
Yeah.
expect to live to 85, 90, 95.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it was really looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying, okay, do you want to be an active grandparent? Do you want to be together at 85? So
Well, it's not only that, but like, I don't want to be confined to a wheelchair.
yeah,
I don't want to be uh, confined to taking meds every day that regulate my body. I want to be able to move around, want to be able to do stuff,
you want to
right?
be
You
active
want to be active. Yeah,
and
you need to
healthy.
be, honestly, health is the only thing you have.
It
At the
is.
end of the day, it's your health. And
Yes.
so you know,
And as you're young, you can do more wear and tear on your body and
yeah,
still bounce back. But I'm sure people in their 40s are getting a clue as to what we're talking about.
yeah,
Especially women, they start hitting perimenopause in their 40s, and that's a whole ravaging thing. So it's a lot that starts happening. But I just think for the second half, I mean, it's just that is the theme.
it's
It's
funny.
honoring the time,
One of the
honoring the time.
one of my younger coworkers went to the doctor because his foot hurt, and I'm like, well, I started asking questions. Well, what are the symptoms? Well, it just hurts in the morning or something. I was like, dude, welcome to getting old, man.
Yes.
That's what I call Monday.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
not just the foot, it's the elbow or the back or whatever. Just
Oh,
start
yeah.
moving around. It'll cure
I
itself.
think that's the main thing is to stay active, stay moving, use your mind, use your brain,
Hmm.
and take risks, take challenges. Um, don't be scared. Don't be fearful because this is it.
Yeah. Well, this
you
is
know?
even this alone, right? We're doing this podcast. People know us. You put yourself out there. We'll
Yeah.
touch on some topics that'll open us up for some hate.
Yeah.
Some people may agree, others will not agree.
Yeah.
Some people will be nice, some people will be completely
Yeah.
horrendous.
Yeah.
And you just open yourself up. But it's in that sense, it's kind of fun. It's new, it's different. I've always been camera shy. I
Yeah.
don't like to be in the spotlight. I'm just not about that.
You're not
This is
about that at all. You don't even like to leave the house really.
I would
So-
not that bad, but
yeah. Well, you need a 2 week notice before we go to dinner or something. But I just saw a quote from Jerry Seinfeld. He said, no matter, I'm not quoting literally, or verbatim, but he said, what you're doing, just focus on that and work your hardest on that. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing, what anyone's saying,
hmm
anyone else's opinions. He's like, just pick your thing and work on that thing. And that's all that matters. And you'll be fine. And just
hmm
the rest of it, just doesn't matter. He's like, none of that matters. Has nothing to do with anything. You
hmm
just work on what you want to do. And it's true. You can't worry about that's another thing. I don't care and I guess this is part of also the second half of my life. I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I haven't though for a long time. And I think that's a Gen X thing. But even Gen Xers at times have cared what people think about them. But that part of me that's Gen X is like raging now. Like I really don't care what anyone I'm a kind, courteous person.
hmm
I'm a nice person, thoughtful, all that. So I'm not out there being a jerk, but I don't care about people's judgments. I really don't.
hmm Yeah, it's an interesting thing because when you come across people who do, there's friction,
Yeah.
absolute friction in that situation.
Yeah. Like what's an example of that?
Uh, oh man.
Like hypothetically. Doesn't have to be a real one.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't want to offend
Don't
anybody.
out anyone.
Yeah, that's it's just a tough one. I can't even think of one because it would be more personal. I'm just thinking more like in our small world around what people's interests are versus our
Yeah.
interests, the weight they put into those interests, the pressure they put on their kids, and what they think is important. At the
Mm,
end of the day, it's not. You
right.
know, they're everything that your kids are going through now when they're 12, 13, 14, they're formative. It definitely has an impact, but I can guarantee you it's not it's not the most important thing in the world. Might
Right.
feel like it, and you know, but it's just not.
And it's important to honor it for those kids because to them it feels like everything, whatever they're
But I
going
mean,
through.
I guess that's probably maybe that's a good example would be just that we're not living vicariously through our kids. We're
Hmm.
living with them, and then we take an interest in what they're doing. We enjoy the music they like. We go to music with them, and and they're a reflection of us, but we're not living through them. So sports would be one thing, right? It's not like if we're not looking for our kids to become professional athletes
Hmm.
and never have.
Hmm.
So there's the difference because there are parents like that, right? And so
Yeah. And
or singing or whatever it might be.
right. And we're not saying that if you're wanting your kid to be a professional athlete or singer or actor, whatever, you're not vicariously living through them. We're not saying that you are vicariously living through your kids. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm,
It's just for us, that's not our thing. But
mhm.
I think, I think if you're going to chase those dreams, you can't care what others think. But I think in so many ways you have to. It's just like this weird thing
What do
of
you mean?
like for people to chase those dreams of wanting to be a professional athlete or wanting to be famous in anything, you have to care what others think because they're judging you on your skills and performance. And
Mhm.
then you have to not care what they think in order to chase that dream, or else your insecurities would paralyze you and you would never chase the dream. It's an interesting
Well,
war.
in that sense, I think you're getting into bouncing back from failure or
Yeah.
having short-term memory,
Yes.
right? I was thinking more the parents who think that they're on the field
Oh,
more so than
yes.
the athlete or singer chasing it. If
Yes.
professional athletes and singers are totally from a different mold.
Yes.
I was looking
Yeah.
at the Caitlin Clark recently in her workout. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's why she's so good.
Yeah.
It's amazing the
Yeah.
dedication she puts into it, the reps
Yes.
of taking a jump shot. It's amazing. Kobe, right? And I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you do. You've heard us talk about it. But Kobe gets to games when he was still playing, right? Gets to games before everybody. And when the game's over, win or lose, he's there for like another hour or two. The guy's an animal.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
No,
That's what it
it takes
takes.
a certain mindset.
Yeah.
It does. No, yeah. If you're yes. And so if you're talking about parents who are in the thick of it, like in elementary school, middle school, even high school, and kind of vicariously living through their
Yeah.
kids, yeah, that's not it. That's not it. Like that's all gonna end. And your kids go to college or they get a job and then you have to keep living your life.
Yeah.
So but it's so easy to fall into the trap of all that. There's so much FOMO and
But I
everything.
do think that's part of, you were saying that's part of your scripted piece from, high school or elementary school,
Yeah.
whatever, and having kids. To me, that part becomes unscripted because sure, at a kind of at the macro level or the theme level, yeah, you're parenting, you've got kids, you're doing all this stuff, but you have to maintain some sense of self-identity through all that,
Yes, you
right? And
do.
that's a big piece, but in order to maintain your own self-identity, you have to be able to um you don't just follow along with the herd.
Yes, but that's challenging, and
Yeah,
that's where you're talking about causing
but
friction.
that causes friction for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure. There's times we haven't followed along with the
I'd say
herd.
most of our life
Yes.
it's not been a frictionless existence in that sense.
No, no, because when something is no longer serving us, we move on from it.
Yeah.
We do. And or if it's not serving our children, we
I
have no
think
problem with that.
the other piece too, though, I think we talked about this in one of our episodes. Might know when I mentioned the topic, but we were younger parents, so
Mhm.
we were automatically had some friction
Mhm.
because weren't 5, 10 years younger than the people we were hanging out with. And now we become somewhat of the older parents,
Mhm.
and so there's slight friction there.
Mhm.
It's an interesting concept,
It
and
is.
friction's not conflict. It's
Right.
just in incongruence of ideas or actions,
Yeah, there you go.
goals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But I do think it's hard to walk away from certain things and to be the only one maybe that walks away from something or
Yeah.
makes a different decision than others,
Oh, 100%.
that's not easy, but it definitely is more rewarding. And like I said, it's made space for what was supposed to
Yeah.
come into our lives. You have to make that space.
Yeah.
If you hold on to the staleness, the new stuff will not come.
Yeah.
You are not on your authentic journey if you're holding on to something just because of the fear of letting it go. Whether it's an
Yeah.
experience, whether it's a job, whether it's a hobby, whether it's friends, whether it's a relationship.
Yep.
And I think getting into our 50s and into this phase of our life, at least for me, it's been easier to make that space and let the staleness go.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it anymore at
Yeah.
all. I wasn't too worried to begin with, but now I'm not worried at all about it.
Another thing on the career front, I remember, we talked about this, I think in episode 2 or 3, um, some of the career moves I had made, right?
Hmm.
And
That was episode 1, I think. I don't know.
whatever. The I remember being at a job and leaving, and people were like, "What? Why are you leaving here?" Well, it's like, we're not making any money, guys.
Right.
And then going to this next gig and then leaving again. And it's like, "Whoa, why are you doing it? We're making okay money, but I've got a family. I'm not here to, no offense, but we'll be friends. We can be friends, but not here." And so a lot of people get comfortable and they're not willing to change. And that's part of their script, right? In some
Yeah.
ways, what you're talking about, or this topic in many ways, is they get on their path, they're on script, and the thought of being off the script is very intimidating and very fear inducing.
Yeah.
I feel like we've never been on a script. I feel like we've always been off script in that sense.
Well, it's interesting because I feel we have been on a script
Yeah.
because we both went to the same schooling all the way through. Then we got married. Then we had kids.
But
Then
what
we
do you
raised our kids.
so for you though, to be, where was I going to go with this? Your background, you've talked about it, is how chaotic it was,
My
right?
childhood.
Your childhood is way more chaotic than mine.
Yes.
So this is interesting actually, because yours was so chaotic and you kind of got on a script of parenting and wifing and raising kids,
Yes.
whereas I was on a script. Mine was tight. I was,
Yeah.
very a lot of order in my life as a young guy, to becoming more the breadwinner. That's completely off script. So now the answers were never right there. It's like, here's what's next. Here's what's next. It's like,
Right.
what's next?
Right. So we
What's
flip
next?
flopped.
We did flip flop. Yeah.
Yeah. Because even though I was following a loose script, because I went to elementary school, middle
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
high school, college, that is part of the script, right? It was a very loose, chaotic script because my childhood was just crazy.
Yeah.
So then once I got into being married and motherhood, that became a very welcoming script for me. I liked having the script. I liked the predictability.
Yeah.
I liked that every day was even though it was crazy raising kids and all that, there was like consistency to it. I loved all of that.
Yeah.
So where you had that consistency growing up,
Yeah.
and then now you're the breadwinner and not knowing what is going to come next. You're right. We flip-flop completely. Another thing, you were talking about change and how people in their scripts are fearful of change. They like their script to be a certain way
Hmm.
and they don't deviate off the script at all. They
Hmm.
kind of follow that script. And then when they get to that quote unquote end of the marathon, when their kids are raised and they're kind of looking at each other, that may be why a lot of marriages do end at that point, because there is the road ended for them because they were following a script so tightly, and now there's no script and they have no tools on how to move forward.
Hmm.
Whereas you're saying like we would continue to challenge ourselves or walk away from toxic situations or not be part of the herd, even through those years where we were on a technical script. We kept exercising those skills of walking away and leaving things that were no longer serving us and embracing change, even though it was scary at times, not being fearful. So we were constantly still changing within our script. So then once we got to are getting to the point now where that part of our life is ending, it doesn't scare us because we've been kind of taking those leaps and bounds, a little bit here, a little bit there, during the time of raising our kids.
Yeah.
S- But
Yeah.
if you hold on to your security blankets through living this first half of your life script and you don't take those chances, then when you get to that end of when you're raising your kids and you're kind of looking at each other, that could be really scary because what do you do now? It's almost
Yeah.
like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And that could be very overwhelming,
Yeah.
especially if you haven't maintained
Yeah.
a friendship.
I can't imagine settling down per se, and maybe that's a not an apparent thing. We probably look like we have settled down. Um, I don't plan on this being our last house. I think you might. I know I
I
probably don't.
love
But
this house.
yeah, and I love being here. Um, but at some point it's just not gonna work just because it's crazy here.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome. We're in South Florida. Everybody knows that by now. Um, but to your point, if you keep changing, if you stay dynamic, I think, and keep changing the script in sense, or keep writing the script, right? For me, I grew up on the East Coast, went to the West Coast. We moved to the Midwest, back to the West Coast, back to the East Coast, and then now we're in the Southeast. That's different.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
And you too, though. You grew up on the West Coast, went
Yeah.
Midwest,
Yes.
West, East,
Yeah.
so it's just different.
No, I think we've always we've tweaked things.
Mm-hmm.
We keep tweaking things. Even as like you said, we've traveled, we've
Yeah.
moved. Well, we've moved. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say we're huge. We drove around the country for 2.5 months after college, but we're not like world travelers or anything. And we've traveled for lacrosse, but we've moved a lot. But even so, in other situations, whether it's interpersonal relationships, friendships, we've tweaked them. We
Yeah.
keep tweaking and changing things
I think it's great too,
to
though.
keep
Like
it fresh.
we've met some really cool people.
Oh yeah.
It's wild because I think we both know people from our high school hometowns that are still there.
Yeah.
We also know people who are out and about and not there.
Right.
And then by moving, we've met people that, especially in South Florida, no one that we know really. There's only a few natives, right?
Hmm.
Most people are from other parts of the country or world. Um, so you meet a lot of really cool,
Yeah.
dynamic, interesting people.
Well, even up in New Jersey,
Hmm.
when we've known that is one thing when you have kids and you're raising them, by default, you get to know other parents and you really get to know some awesome people,
Hmm.
kind people. Most people want the same thing. We just want the best for our kids. That
Hmm.
really is it. You will meet some toxic people through it, and even their intentions are they want the best for their kids. Just the
Yeah.
way they're going about it doesn't jive with me.
Yeah.
But so we all want that, right? But there are some really awesome people out there. I cherish the people we've met along our journey,
Hmm.
and I would welcome running into a lot of them in the future. I would hope I would. And I think that's such a gift from having kids is you get to know all these parents. And
Hmm.
in there I will say I have some of my best friends
Hmm.
and I cherish them. So, but I think it's important as you're going on that journey to not get too settled in to what you're doing and to not be afraid of change.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of change and to take risks for your family and to always have your kids back. It's hard to have your kids back sometimes. A lot of people don't like confrontation and a lot of people don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
But no one is going to have your kids back except you.
Yeah.
So if it means you might lose a friend or two, you still need to have your kids back. That is your job as a parent.
Yeah.
100%. I stand by that.
Yeah.
It's very important. So,
It's an interesting one because we've, and count the number of conflicts I've had in my adult life in probably one hand. And they've probably all been related to something in that front with your kids, defending
yeah.
your kids, standing up for your kids.
Yeah.
You don't have to always make it right for other people's kids if it's at the cost of your own kid.
Yep.
And that's honestly some serious advice for younger parents, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it's a great call. You have to protect your kids.
And it can make
If you
things
don't, who will?
exactly.
Yeah.
It can make things uncomfortable, but you will see looking back, it was all for the right reasons
Hmm.
and things are better from it. things are always better from it. It's just in the moment it can feel super uncomfortable and scary. So, but as a result of us continuing to change and take on new things when we could here and there, I think by the time we got to this phase in our life, we were kind of ready to say, okay, and look what we did. I mean, like we're trying all these new things.
Yeah.
And we really didn't hesitate too long. In fact, I'm like always thinking of what's something else we can do.
Yeah.
I find it, I'm hoping and I'm confident that this next half of our life is going to be exciting and fun. And I'm excited. Like I'm really excited about it, no matter what we
Yeah.
do.
I think life's always an adventure.
Oh, well,
And so
yeah.
you have to treat it that way.
Yeah. But I personally, I guess as a mom, finally have some time to breathe and look around and say, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can
Well,
go
the
on.
lawn needs to be
Yeah.
mowed, and there's some weeds in the
Haha.
flower
Yeah.
beds. Yeah.
But no, I can say, oh yeah, I can go on that hike on Sunday. And I know there's moms that have been doing that as they raise kids, and God bless them. I wasn't one of those. I was always busy with my kids. And I will say I did not carve out probably as much time as I should have as a mom. So that's some advice I'd give if you can. But now that I can, I'm taking full advantage of it whenever I can
Hmm.
and claiming some of my own space. So I think we did good when we were on script, but I'm excited to be off script now in this next phase of our life and kind of just write our own screenplay in a way that's unique.
Yeah, you're talking like we're retired.
I know.
I got to go to work Monday. That's
I know. I know. Well,
funny.
that's a whole nother part of our life. So yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
those are our thoughts about the first half and the second half of what we had going on in our lives in the past and what we're looking forward to.
Yeah. All right.
So if anyone can relate, share comments or questions, or we'd love to hear from you.
I would love to hear others' point of view on this
Yeah.
um in the context of, did you follow a script? Are you coming out of that script? Have you always been kind of a little all over the place and then just having it evolve? I think there's an element for everybody to both.
Yeah.
I'd be curious,
Well, and
get some perspective
and
on that.
people who choose not to have children, they have a totally different script. People who are single their whole life have a
Yeah.
totally different script. Yeah, I'd love to hear those scripts
Yeah.
because I only know our script or and others who are like us. And there's single moms and single dads who have a completely different script. So,
Yeah.
I would love to hear about what people have gone through in their own journey. So,
Yep. Cool.
okay, we'll see you next time.
All right. We're out. Take care.